All right, guys, we're going to continue talking about absolute value and what we do with solving an equation. All right, so what if there is stuff outside the absolute value bars? Okay, if you remember the steps from the last video, you're going to isolate the absolute value. So what we need to do here is first isolate the absolute value. That means get the absolute value by itself. So before we do anything else, we need to get rid of this -2. Well, it's an equation, so we're going to solve by getting rid of that by subtracting the same thing on both sides. So we're going to bring down the absolute value of c. This is going to cancel. 12 minus 2 is 10. Now that this is isolated, we're going to do like we did in the last video and set this equal to 10 and -10. Absolute value means distance from 0 on a number line. You can go in two directions on the number line, in the positive direction and the negative direction. All right. Then you're going to write it in set notation. So your solution set is -10 and 10. And again, when you plug that in, you should check to see that it makes sense. So take -10 and plug it back into the original equation. So if you take -10, what is the absolute value of -10? Well, it's +10. 10 plus 2 is 12, so that one works. Take 10, absolute value of 10 is 10, plus 2 is 12. 12 equals 12, so those both work. So they're easy to check. Take time to do that. All right, number 10, opposite of -8 is +8. I've got the absolute value of y equals, this will cancel, -5 plus 8 is 3. So again, the first thing we had to do is isolate the absolute value. Then we're going to set it equal to 3 and -3. So my solution set, -3 and 3. Okay, like before, if you need to pause this at any time to make sure you get good notes, go ahead and do that. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the next examples. All right, number 11 says 6 times the absolute value, so we have to get rid of the 6. The opposite of multiplication is division. So let's divide both sides by 6. That leaves absolute value of x is equal to 4. 4 equals, or x equals 4, x equals -4. So once you isolate, then you set it equal to the positive and negative, and then the last step is write your solution set. All right, over here I have a -2 outside of the absolute value. So to isolate, the first thing I need to do is divide both sides by -2. So I've got absolute value of z plus 3. And -14 divided by -2, again, two negatives equal a +7. And I'm going to have z plus 3 equals 7. And z plus 3 equals -7. Subtract. Z equals 7 minus 3 is 4. Subtract again, because a positive and opposite cancel. These cancel. And I have z equals -7 minus 3. I spend $7, and then I spend 3 more. I've spent $10. Okay? So when you add two negatives, you get a negative. But when you multiply or divide, it changes. All right, solution set, -10, +4. Again, I'm always going to put the negative first. Pause if you need to. We're going to go ahead and move on. All right, so we're still solving equations with absolute value. This time the absolute value is divided by 6. Hopefully you remember that the opposite of divide is multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. So I'm going to have absolute value of 2w minus 4 equals 3 times 6 is 18. Absolute value is now isolated, so I need to set up my two equations. So I'm going to have 2w minus 4 equals 18. And I'm going to have 2w minus 4, again, this side stays the same, equals negative 18. I'm going to add 4. 2w equals 18 plus 4 is 22. And w equals 11. I'm going to add 4 to this side as well. Negative 4 and plus 4 cancel. 2w equals negative 18 plus 4 is negative 14. Those are opposite signs. And w equals negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. All right, kind of running out of room here. I'm going to put my solution set over here. So my solution set is negative 7 and positive 11. And again, go ahead and double check those if you need to. Plug it back in. Make sure it works. It's quick and easy to check. Take 11, plug it back into your original equation. 2 times 11 is 22. 22 minus 4 is 22 minus 4 is 18. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So that one works. And you do the same thing for negative 7. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. Negative 14 minus 4 is negative 18. The absolute value of negative 18 is 18, and then 18 divided by 6 is 3. So both of those will work. All right, on this side I have a negative 10 outside the absolute value and a negative 3. All right, when we solve, we're undoing the order of operations, so you kind of work in reverse. So we're going to undo addition and subtraction first. In order of operations, you multiply and divide first, but when you're solving, you do that in reverse. All right, and then negative 83 plus 3 is negative 80. And then I have to divide by negative 10 because we're still trying to isolate the absolute value. So that's going to give me absolute value of h plus 5 equals negative 80 divided by negative 10 is a positive 8. H plus 5 equals 8. H plus 5 equals negative 8. Once I get the absolute value isolated, then I set up my two equations and solve. H equals 8 minus 5 is 3. And H equals negative 8 and minus 5 is negative 13. So my solution set for this side would be negative 13 and positive 3. All right, so go ahead and check those and make sure you're on the right track. All right, the next one, these are getting a little bit longer, but the same process. Isolate first. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I have 7 times absolute value. $106 and plus 6 would be 112. Divide by the 7 because it's outside the absolute value there. 112 divided by 7 is 16. And I have 4n plus 8. Still an absolute value. Now that the absolute value is isolated, set up my two equations. 4n plus 8 equals 16. 4n plus 8 equals negative 16. Subtract 8. Negative 16 minus 8. 16 minus 8 is 8. Divide by 4. N equals 2. All right, over here I'm going to subtract 8 4n equals negative 16 minus 8 is negative 24. Divide both sides by 4. N equals negative 6. All right, so we're going to write our solution set. Again, I'm going to kind of write it over here to the side. So it'd be negative 6 and positive 2. All right, go ahead and pause this if you need to. I'm going to move this off the screen so that we have a little bit more room. All right, number 16 has a fraction, and we all love fractions. Oh, well, you know, all the math teachers like fractions. I don't know about the students. All right, so I have 3 halves times the absolute value minus 24 equals negative 21. First thing I need to do is isolate, undo the addition and subtraction. So to undo the addition and subtraction, I'm going to add 24 to both sides. All right, so I have 3 halves times absolute value equals negative 21 plus 24 is positive 3. Now I need to get rid of this 3 halves. Okay, to get rid of 3 halves, everybody's like, well, I'm multiplying that by this, so I need to divide. Well, hopefully at some point in time you learned that you can multiply by the reciprocal of a fraction, and that's the same as dividing a fraction by a fraction. Because dividing a fraction by a fraction just really doesn't make sense. But if I multiply by the reciprocal, and again, it's an equation, so I have to do the same thing on both sides, I get 2 times 3, which is 6, over 3 times 2, which is 6. 6 over 6 is 1. So that gets rid of everything. That would just be a 1 coefficient, which would be just this. Equals, and then a fraction times a fraction makes a lot more sense because we do 3 times 2 over 3, or you could reduce it first. But either way, you're going to have 6 over 3. 6 over 3 is 2. All right, now we have our absolute value is isolated. 4r minus 4 equals 2. And 4r minus 4 equals negative 2. Again, the left side stays the same. The only thing that changes is the 2 and negative 2 because that's your distance from 0 on the number line. So I'm going to have 4r come down. This cancels. 2 plus 4 is 6. Oh, look, we even get a fraction for an answer. All right, so 6 divided by 4. Both of those are divisible by 2. So if you reduce those by 2, you get 3 over 2 for your answer. All right, so here I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So negative 4 plus 4 cancels. Bring down my 4r. Negative 2 plus 4 is positive 2. Divide by 4. Again, I get a fraction. So 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. Both divisible by 2. Reduce it. So 1/2. Remember, 4 divided by 2 is 2, but 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. So my solution set would be 1/2 and 3/2, which is 1 1/2, but we're going to write it as just a fraction. All right, special cases. All right, we're looking at distance from 0. Remember, distance cannot be negative. So if you have something that is isolated and it says negative, the absolute value cannot equal a negative number. So this would be no solution. Okay, and we write no solution as the null set. That means there's no solution. All right, this one I would divide by negative 3. Once I see that I get negative 7, again, it doesn't matter what's here. It would be no solution. All right, so absolute value is distance from 0. If it equals a negative number, that means it is no solution. Okay?